Hello everyone, this is Philosophy of the People with Stefan Bertram, and today I am joined not just by Quinn, but by Deepsake Cuba. I think definitely for the first time on this show. And today we're going to be talking about the oeuvre, that's definitely not how you pronounce that, of Robert Eggers. Starting with,
Ugh.
I'm not starting with, I'm going to be covering I Know Best, Northman and the Witch, and I'm hoping for these other two gentlemen to be able to cover the Lighthouse. Is that what it's called? Is it called the Lighthouse?
Yeah,
And
Oh, yeah.
Nosferatu, which just came out last
yeah.
year.
I recently watched both of those, so I can talk a little bit about them.
I am fond of the lobster.
I thought last night, I was like, oh damn! Imagine if he'd got to do Odyssey as opposed to the man who has been doing it. It looks so bad. The shots from the Odyssey, like obviously he's not covered it in slop yet, but that presumably just make it worse.
We'll see.
So, as regarding Robert Eggers, I want to frame, and obviously you two can just use a different framing, it doesn't really matter. But I want to frame Robert Eggers' works around the idea of his kind of disgust for the contemporary moment, his interest in history, and his interest in portraying alien moral landscapes where outside extra-human forces have real impact on the world, while at the same time, compared to if he was like a full fantasy director, these outside human forces are deliberately kind of underplayed in terms of how much real power they have over the world in order to bring out this contrast that these people, Eggers thinks, lived in the past, lived with these other forces, even if they weren't kind of empirically confirmed in the way that we would currently understand it today. These are landscapes where people really believe in God, in the devil, in destiny, in fate, and the fates. People believe that outside powers exist above and beyond the human race, forces that can crush them. These forces exist within the minds of the characters in the film in such a way that they are set against what they desire as persons. The father in Witch does not want to bring any harm to his daughter, and the protagonist of Northman does not wish to abandon his common law wife, which is Anna Taylor-Joy in both cases, I realized while I was writing this. But they feel that there are signs in the world that extra-human forces require them to do these things for the sake, in large part, of their family. We live in a time where people struggle to comprehend that someone could disagree with them morally, never mind that there are extra-human forces which could make us act contrary to how we might high-mindedly think and wish. Instead, in the contemporary era, these forces are moved inside us, with contemporary psychology taking the place of the devil and the fates as a force which forms the outside of the rational mind. But there's a very big distinction here that the outside of the rational mind is now living very decidedly inside us, which previously kind of the idea that these outside forces lived within a person. Okay, like if that's happening, then you're like a sage, you're a witch, and so on. Well, for now, we all think we have this outside force of our psychology inside us, which is set against us. Liberals, for instance, often explain that conservatives are against homosexuality because of a repressed and sublated homosexual desire, regardless of how implausible this may be in any particular case. How limited we are thus limits what Eggers can betray. You can play with ideas that we may understand, abandoning your wife in order to protect her, and simply supplying different reasons for why you might be motivated to think this is true, or why you might do this thing, but is unable to have his protagonists do truly alien things. Well, you weren't here, Kuba. We discussed previously when we talked about Northman, that as much as it would be completely plausible, there's actually no explicitly shown sexual violence at any point in Northman.
Yeah, there's that one moment where Anna Taylor-Joy is being prepared, is being groomed to service Hamlet's uncle, right? The master of the manor in Iceland, and they specifically use her period as a excuse to pull back from that moment. Understanding,
and also very notably, it's like the hero, very deliberately, the hero rescues her eventually from this situation.
yeah, and there's the remarkable scene where he attacks that poor Slavic settlement, right? I saw it and I'm like, Grandpa, and the savagery isn't, no punches are pulled. You see all kinds of different brutal murder and the enslavement of an entire village, the elderly, children to the torch inside of a temple. I mean, it's horrendous, but obviously in traditional best Viking practice, this would go along with a great deal of sexual violence. And yet, despite the fact that we're supposed to, we accept that the protagonist is this profoundly violent Viking monster, right? He is the devil for the Slavic people, coming out of nowhere, destroying their entire world, liquidating entire communities, and if you survive, it's only as a slave, it's only as chattel.
And yet, consent.
There's your mysterious moral forces in your alien landscapes.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. has this bit where he talks about how in the natural world it seems like all sex is just rape. That's you see two animals mating, and rarely does HR get involved. And there is a moment in human history where I think that line gets crossed, and the consent of, I'm not going to say the woman, because often the party being assaulted is going to be another man, right? A boy, a child. But the idea that consent of the weaker side is something that is necessary to make this licit and legal, that is an innovation that comes at a certain point in historical development.
Right, like this whole conversation we're having now is something which only exists within a particular moral landscape, which didn't previously, has only existed very briefly. Also, notably, it depends how we take this. But even in the case at the start of the movie, he sets it up in such a situation as if his mother has been stolen away from his father by his uncle. But the twist is it doesn't. It's not clear how we should take this. If we should take her at her word, or if she's just engaging, kind of like she's just lashing out or whatever. She's saying things to incite him. But his mother indicates that no, actually, that was me being rescued. I didn't want to be with your father. I wanted to be with your uncle. And so even in this case, where it seems like a woman is stolen away, at least it's said in the script that this is not the case.
Well, it would be great to have a woman on the panel today, because especially a woman from the barbarian period of medieval European history.
That would be so sick. I mean, that might be a thing. The only problem with AI not being able to do this is that, there's not the data which exists. It's impossible.
Yeah, like, to what extent is the only agency available for women in these situations the opportunity to potentially pick between rapists, right?
Yeah.
There's no question that you will have a husband and master, a husband or master, but perhaps you will have some input into who that is. But the idea, and you can see the very clear contrast. I think that one way to illustrate what you're getting at with Eggers and these alien moral landscapes that he invents, that he constructs, is to contrast it with something like Vikings or The Last Kingdom, these prestige TV properties that pay a lot of attention to the setting, work on accents, convince you of place, but these are Vikings that definitely know all about consent. right? These are people who have gone through the HR seminars. They, in order to make it accessible to a larger audience, the moral landscapes are not alien in the least, right?
Yeah,
And
because obviously, the protagonist of Northman believes in consent, but he doesn't believe in girl power. He doesn't think that Anna Taylor-Joy should join the Shield War. While in something like
yes,
Vikings, you do have girl power as well as consent.
yeah, and there is an underlying rationality in the way that the characters behave, the way that they strategize, the way that they reason. One element that makes these landscapes alien is that cause and effect don't work the way that a rational post-enlightenment mind wants them to. You have a phenomenon that emerge out of obscure and invisible sources, right? The demon haunted world, the powers that are above and beyond human personality, the fates. And regardless of your diligent application of practical reason, you're not going to be able to escape the metaphysical causality that drives you to your destiny. These characters, in a lot of ways, cannot do other than what they are doing and feel that powerlessness. In the Northman, it was particularly striking because, you could just leave.
Yeah.
There's room in the boat. You're at the boat. You could just leave,
Right. And as a rational modernist person, you're like, well, okay, you're going to the Orkney Isles. This is one man left on Iceland without a boat, whose entire settlement has been destroyed. He seems like he's not going to be able to do much. But if you really believe in the fates, you really believe in this prophecy, which obviously the protagonist does, then that doesn't matter. He's going to turn up and he's going to destroy you like you destroyed him. Because, of course, him appearing there, him having all these events happen to them, is also not a rational story, is also not a reasonable story, and one that he deliberately makes seem irrational and unreasonable because his initial serial killing spree is done in such a way as to make it seem like a spirit did it, like a demon did it. I'm not sure exactly the Eggers is more careful by like with a demon or whatever. I can't remember exactly how they form this. I don't know if Quinn remembers.
No, I want to say it was referred to as a spirit, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
So this is also what Eggers does, where he plays for a long time with the supernatural, though in the end he normally just shows it to you.
It's only in that moment, in extremis, right? At when people are taken to the point that the subterranean invisible forces have been driving them towards, that they finally reveal themselves to be real, right? You actually don't get that confirmation, which is something that only the audience needs, right? There's no question in the minds of any Eggers characters that this metaphysical, spiritual reality is the key to their own existence and patterning the events in their own lives. They know this. They have internalized it. They don't need to be convinced. There's no conversion moment. There's no debate with the characters. It's just the audience that has to be only at that moment, at the end, at the culmination, at the climax, are they shown that, no, there is some reality to this, but often only in a way that makes you wonder if the phenomenon you're observing are objectively real or if this represents a fundamental break with sanity. But that's another issue. Can you even discuss mental illness, mental health, sane versus insane, in a world where everyone believes in the fundamental everyday reality of forces that get you a schizophrenia diagnosis these days? And one of the most interesting parts of seeing Eggers evolve from movie to movie and watching the reception of his films, and the United States especially, is that for a lot of Americans, which America has always been the least rationalized of Western countries, the one with the strongest ooga booga force underneath the surface, the least penetration of, rationalism and existentialism. And you are seeing like that woman in the University of Oklahoma that recently made a big issue of getting a 0 on her exam because she cited God and demonic forces when it comes to gender. You mentioned that.
I'm sure there's definitely a way to write that would get like a star published in a journal, though.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, she's like
Absolutely.
she's like a 20-year-old who can't write very well. Like it's. I'm not shocked that it's not good.
But also think about the entire anti-vax movement, especially related to COVID. You'd think that one of the most basic and fundamental achievements of Western rational civilization would be that, look, we have a germ theory we can cure diseases now. It turns out it's not witchcraft. It turns out it's these little bugs that we can go into your body and destroy if you let us. And we even have an entire industry that just creates medicine so that we don't have plagues anymore. You used to have plagues. You used to have so many plagues you need to color code them, right?
We still have the occasional plague.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're gonna get a little plague
in the end.
Yeah.
I mean that's the incredible thing. Like, vaccines are one of the few parts of modern medicine which really works. Like, vaccines and surgeries are the two bits that really work. While all like heart disease medication is like, this will reduce your chance of having a heart attack by like 30%, but also all your hair will fall out and your dick won't work, and it'll increase your chances of having a heart attack by 30%. While vaccines work completely, but it's probably exactly because they're so effective that there's this desire to go at them.
Chemo's like, it sucks, but it does actually work at getting rid of cancer.
It also, I mean, it's good at getting rid of people too.
Yeah.
Well,
go on.
There's a dialectic in modern medicine where you balance between killing the patient and killing the disease. And a great deal of contemporary innovation, which is probably one reason why America is bad at it, consists not in some fundamental breakthrough that lets you monetize a completely new product, but in incremental improvements so that we reduce the bad side effects of chemo by 20%. Therefore, we increase its effectiveness by 10%, and while reducing the side effect related mortality by 20%, which gets us a 15% increase. And if we do this 10 times, then we can get to a point where you have to do less chemo, it's more effective, and you don't have the same side effect related mortality as you do now.
I remember reading one of the founding fathers, an essay where he discusses the like inevitable rationality of giving your children the smallpox vaccine, and this is at a point where there was a 2 to 5% chance of it just killing the child.
Oh.
But yeah, I think
I like those odds. At 2 to 5% chance, that requires a critical fail on an attribute check. Like.
Yeah, I've got 8 kids, so.
And that's the thing, right? Back in those days, if you have 8 kids, you don't actually think to yourself you have 8 kids. You think to yourself you have 2 kids, right? Yeah. And then you've dug 6 child-sized holes behind your house already.
Yeah, I think that's actually very interesting in The Witch. Well, obviously, a baby dies in The Witch, and everyone is relatively upset about this, and it kind of sets events in motion, but it's not quite the crushing absolute horror it would be for a contemporary person. I think you're completely right about the kind of nature of there's some things which aren't debated in Eggers films, which are absolutely debated in real life, or even not even taken particularly seriously anymore. But then, so on some level, The Witch is an extended debate. You've both seen it, right?
Of course.
On some
yeah,
level,
but it's been a few years.
Okay. The Witch is like an extended debate. But accepted, the background exception here is God exists and the devil exists. And they both have truck with humans. And the whole debate is who of us in the film is in truck with the devil and who is in truck with God, and who is causing, because of that, the problems that are destroying us. I really did like The Witch for being a film which felt very claustrophobic, despite being in the clean, open countryside, because the claustrophobia was from an increasing closing of horizons.
And the fact that you have such a limited number of people, right? You've reduced the social world, while the natural world, which is incidentally where the devil lives, right, is boundless, kind of liminal, because you don't have the big sky, you don't have big open views, but the forest just seems to go on forever in every direction. And that is limitless. But the human world, which is the only instantiation of godliness, right, that is limited to this one family that are so and with the paterfamilias, the patriarch figure, being such a stubborn Puritan among other stubborn Puritans, that they have to leave their already insular and hidebound congregation to go into an even more challenging and isolated environment.
Explains what that might be, because to us as an audience, I don't think whatever answer we would have got would not be particularly interesting or relevant or comprehensible to it. So he just completely leaves the issue alone and never brings it up. Well, it doesn't brings it up, but then never elaborates on it.
Well, I think that that's part of the alienness of this environment, of this historical period, of any historical period, right? The essential debate around the salvation of Puritan souls in New England, just like all of the fraternal Christian on Christian violence of the wars of religion from the Eastern Orthodox frontier with Russia and the Balkans all the way to Ireland and Catholic Protestant divide. These, when you look fundamentally at the theological disputes, I'm not talking about the political authority of popes versus kings, but the theological divisions where people pointed and said, because of this particular practice, because of this line of scripture or this doctrine, you're on the side of the devil, I'm on the side of God, and we need to fight. It is boring, tedious, and utterly irrelevant to anyone outside of that universe.
But importantly, they really did believe it. I think there's a great tendency nowadays to be like, oh, actually, it was because the Austrian emperor wanted to take over the silver mines of Bohemia. And it's like, no, those Hussites really believed in it. And those Catholics really wanted to kill them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Catholics also really believed in it. And there's a rationalist appeal, right? Our whole approach to unraveling these questions would be to apply a method which was unavailable to them precisely because we have it as a result of the war-exhausted, blood-drenched détente at the end of the wars of religion, where everyone's like, okay, these wars have destroyed so much, and the only silver lining is they killed the most fanatical of us on all sides. Therefore, even though I still believe in some way in the weird Catholic thing that my team has, and you still believe in the weird Protestant thing that your team has, we just need to find a way for it not to matter as much, right?
Yeah, we can just, how can we make this into a non-killing issue?
Exactly. So I hate you and you're going to hell. You hate me and I'm going to hell, and that's fine. Let's get to a point where that's fine, and we can have disputes that have a resolution mechanism where maybe we read some books and we yell at each other and some guy that we both kind of trust to at least be sort of smart and relatively uncorruptible will be the referee. And one of us is right and the other one goes home unhappy, but that's better than reopening the Dutch question.
I recently read that Eastern Orthodoxy are like completely like very not ecumenical, as in they normally think everyone else is going to hell, and there's very little possible allowance for Catholics and Protestants not going to hell.
There's a tendency that I myself indulged in, where because the Orthodox side of Christianity has been on a long losing streak, and they seem harmless, that you want to ascribe to them characteristics of innocence. And the reality is that no, they just lost, right? Like like
in the Middle East, the Metaphysites and the Orthodox are often like the minority, urban, literate, liberal population, but that's just because they lost. Like their book could have just, well, probably not just as bad, but almost as bad as what the Sunnis have.
It's not like the Byzantine Empire wasn't a slave society with intensely repressive forms of control and weird ooga booga superstitions with a parasitic clerical class.
The icon civil war for 3,000 years, guys.
Or all of the prophets and saints just lived on pillars for some reasons. Or the practice of being an anchorite, right? There's so much. I think that part of our stumbling, groping attempt at rational civilization involves forgetting many of the practices of the relatively recent past, of our relatively recent ancestors, that just make no sense and become objects of horror when separated from the moral universe that inspired them. For instance, you had religious orders, priests and monks and nuns that would wall themselves up into cells and just live in a prison box attached to a church or shrine as living saints until they died. And this could be 40 years. And it seems like a great way to get rid of illegitimate child or a troublesome daughter. But that might account for 20% of the cases. A lot of people walked in, right? A lot of people asked for this destiny. And that seems, if you expressed a desire to your family right now, even to a Joel Osteen style megachurch preacher, it's like, what I would like is for you to carve off a little section of the nave where I could move in a cot and a piss bucket, and you can brick me into it, and I'll just spend the rest of my life praying there and giving cryptic advice to people who come by as an example of holiness and the power of Christ. And
yeah, I mean, if you're in the box, how are you going to change homosexuality laws in Africa?
That's the thing, right? Like, I can understand when you put it in this context that this is a spiritual tradition that sometimes would manifest itself into self-imprisonment. And, this isn't particular to Christianity. Buddhism has the practice of self-mummification as a type of culmination.
I was going to say it's like almost the same practice, right?
Yeah. In fact, arguably, because the Bible doesn't, Jesus said nothing about being an anchorite, right? That is clearly, I think he might be surprised if he came across one of these churches in medieval times and been like, why are you doing this?
I mean, Jesus was quite Protestant in the sense of like he thought everyone should be a universal Christian. What's Quinn flexing? Is that an architecture?
Yeah, I've got. So these are like this is an example of those like early. This is around 1,000, but this is like the kind of design of the churches that we're dealing with.
I was going to say, to get us off orthodoxy and back to Eggers, do you two want to start talking about either Nosferatu or the Lighthouse?
I mean, I think the Lighthouse has a nice kind of way into it through the Witch, because it's got a similar kind of thing that we were talking about of the kind of isolation and a small cast of characters, but turned up to 11, where the kind of liminal space that's surrounding you is the sea. And the kind of all of the alien forces are like mystified and psychic to a point. And the cast of characters is even smaller, where it's just a young and an old man, and then I guess like the lighthouse, the light is its own character if you want to think of like an antagonist. More than like, I guess more than Defoe, because it's really it jumps back and forth based on like who the whole film is like super subjective in a way that even I think like The Witch or parts of the Northman aren't. Like it's a film about like lies and going insane. Go ahead.
Well, here's one possible interpretation of what's going on. I think that it might be useful to make a distinction between the Lighthouse and the Witch on one side and Nosferatu and the Northman on the other, because the Lighthouse and the Witch are these very claustrophobic, small number of characters, tiny world surrounded by untrammeled, infinite, expansive nature type settings, while Nosferatu and the Northman are both actually sort of epic pan-European adventures with a lot of people, a big expanded universe, a social universe, rather than a psychological innerverse. And in the case of both the Witch and the Lighthouse, what you have is a source of metaphysical, I don't want to say evil because I'm enough of a relativist, so
someone in chat said invasive, malevolent force in all his films. Though I would say in Northman that would seem to be the protagonist.
Yeah, in the Northman that's everyone. I
mean, there's the kids who just get butchered and die.
Yes, but they would have grown up. The
Vikings.
And in both the Lighthouse and the Witch, you've got a protagonist, you've got a patriarchal figure that is attempting in some ways to control the dark, malevolent external force, whether it's the light in the Lighthouse or the devil in the Witch. And they fail, right? And ultimately what you have is the younger generation, an actual daughter or a surrogate son, opting to side with the dark and forbidden metaphysical forces against the order that their father figure is trying to impose. And it's an open question as to whether or not that is the right decision, right morally, right pragmatically, right metaphysically. What does it mean for Robert Pattinson's character? What does it mean for Anya Taylor-Joy to have gone over to the other side? Like, we see the decision, but we don't see the consequences of that decision. Are they going to go on and live deliciously, claim the bonus?
Depending on how we see it, Pattinson, we see how it ends for him. Because if I remember the end of that movie right, which I think I do because I saw it on Thursday, it the it I mean spoilers, but like we're doing a show on Eggers, so
This
it's
is
spoilers
all
for all the movies.
spoilers apart from when we feel like we don't want to do it.
The final scene is Pattinson still somehow alive, but having his like the image of Prometheus with his organs being ripped out by the seagulls, dying on the beach, but still somehow moving. And I think this is I think the only one of Eggers' movies that was written by his brother. And I think as it got kind of explicit at the end, as this is a like an American retelling of the Prometheus myth, it feels complicated by the fact that this fire that has been coveted at the top of the lighthouse, that he's finally able to like defeat the ruling class in his boss and violently suppress him. He gets to it. It drives him insane. Either because it in itself is like, opening up the briefcase in Pulp Fiction and he sees like, something otherworldly, or it's not. It's just a light. And the fact that it is a mundane thing that he's been fighting this whole time, the mundanity is what drives him insane. Whatever happens, trying to get the fire is his undoing. And unlike Prometheus, he doesn't bring it to the people. There's no delivery of fire to the American worker. It's just torment and a failed revolution that goes nowhere.
Well, the one thing you mentioned that the light is mundane, and
it could be.
And I think that there's an excellent book, sort of one of the big touchstones of my own world perspective, called the Bicameral Mind. It has a very long title, The Origin of Consciousness, in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind by Julian Jaynes. And he has a very interesting theory that might be completely wrong, but even if it's wrong, it's nonetheless useful and provocative. And he argues that the way that human neurology is set up, the isolation of verbal centers into an inner monologue where we understand that our own thoughts are our own thoughts. I'm just having a conversation with myself that doesn't get vocalized. That represents a break from prehistoric and even early historic modes of cognition, where most of the time you were doing things that were so routine that it was muscle memory together with instinct that directed you for 90% of your activity. And when you engaged with the verbal parts of your mind, it was because you were in a social situation which required thinking, working with another person, interacting with some external force. When you had thoughts of your own, you experienced them like you did any other verbal engagement, verbal thought process, as someone speaking to you. So your own thoughts were like spirits or gods, the voice of the ancestors, the voice of someone else, but there's no one else around me. So it must be have a supernatural source. And he looks at, you brought up the Odyssey at the in your description of Eggers, like what would that movie look like? And Jaynes talks a lot about Homer in this context, because you have this vast drama with recognizable human psychology, but the motivation of every significant action comes from a divine source. Paris is egged on by Aphrodite. Aphrodite tells him to kidnap Troy. When Achilles has his moments of rage. It's gods and goddesses whispering in his ears. Every moment of glory by any one of the Greeks or Trojans is inspired by a different supernatural force, a different god that actually will speak, will give advice, will give orders, will chide, will interact with the human believers. The one person for whom this is not true, and for whom, and every one of the other characters recognizes that they're an extraordinary figure for this very reason, is Odysseus. Odysseus is the clever man, right? The one who's capable, because he recognizes that his thoughts are his own. He's the only one who knows he's thinking. Everyone else thinks they're listening to outside forces. And because you're listening to outside forces, you can't reason with them. You can't evaluate a plan. You can't strategize around it. All you can do is resist or agree, right? You either go along with the god's plan or you try to fight it. But Odysseus knows it's not the god's plan. It's his plan. So he can make it better. He can be clever. He can be crafty. And he can use what he knows in strategic and practical ways against other people. So that's what allows him to come up with a scheme like the Trojan horse, right? He can put himself in the position of the Trojans and imagine their psychology in a way which isn't just, well, you know, God said do this. Ours is like, yeah. And apparently, according to James, there was this moment in the spiritual literature around the Bronze Age where the older priests, as part of their initiations and as part of their rites, would go in to temples or holy places and commune with their gods through idols. You would go to the statue of Zeus, you would lay out some offerings, you would pray, you would meditate, and the statue would talk to you. You would get an answer. And there's a moment inside the texts written by priests where the young priests are sent in, go commune with our gods, find the answers to the problem. And they go in and they light the incense and they sit there and they hear nothing. Because they understand that their thoughts are their own. So they are just sitting there being like, what the hell am I doing here? This is just, its lips aren't moving. It's not going to say anything. Whereas that experience would have been different for the previous generation. And so you have all of this lamentation by the first cognitively self-aware generation being like, why are the gods not speaking to me? Why is the world silent for me when for my father, every stone, every statue, every idol gave voice, right?
I think we also probably split there, and this is what gave birth to philosophers, because some of the first extracts that we have from pre-Socratic philosophers is them complaining about how Homer portrays the gods. That Homer portrays the gods as like a squabbling family with human emotions and human desires. But of course, if the gods are the voices in our heads, of course they have to say those things. Of course they have to do those things. Of course they have to do those things. But the philosophers, and this happens, every single ancient Greek philosopher talks about how much, while at the same time, they think Homer is the most incredible man. They think he's the greatest possible writer, that his work is absolutely perfect in terms of his literary merits. But they, at the same time, are engaged in a cultural struggle to try to get people to recognize, okay, he wrote the greatest story ever, but that doesn't mean the gods are actually like that. So it's, while remaining enchanted with the works of Homer, at the same time, they've taken this step forward where they're like, no, the voices of lust and so on in your head are not the gods. That's the reverse of the situation. What's going on in your heads, this is exactly what Aristotle's saying, is vice, which is a natural human thing, not something that's coming from the outside. And actually where Christianity kind of steps back.
Yeah, and I think that one distinction of, to the extent that we can say that there's anything remarkable about Western civilization, it's that in that break between the Odysseus type, self-conscious, practical, pragmatic thought, that you can draw a line from, even if it's sort of apocryphal jump, right? You can imagine going from Odysseus into the Socratic, Platonic, Aristotelian, and ultimately the rationalist line of Western philosophy, versus staying with the obscurantism of revealed religion and ending up with the Roman Catholic Church, mysticism, weird forms of charismatic contemporary speaking in tongues.
Of course, eventually the Catholic Church was actually like, hold on, no, we're the rationalists. You're going too far.
Yeah, exactly. In many other parts of the world, in many other civilizations, as they develop, you don't have that disentangling of those two tendencies. You instead have them uncomfortably coexisting side by side, to the point where in places like India, in much of Africa, the alien moral landscapes that Eggers describes don't feel quite so alien, because if you believe in witchcraft, which is still a capital punishment in Saudi Arabia, a capital crime in Saudi Arabia, and witches are routinely lynched in places like Congo, right? The accusations of witchcraft can carry the death penalty in Malaysia. There's human sacrifice that takes place in around some of the cartel cultures, this sort of Aztec revivalism. And the for people that are embedded in those kinds of moral, spiritual universes, the Eggers stuff does not hit so weird, right?
Yeah, they're just
The weirdest
straightforward
thing
dogmas about fighting the devil.
Yeah, the strangest part about them is all these white people, actually, because the great, from the perspective of an outsider who remains heavily steeped in supernatural spirituality and the existence of powerful metaphysical forces and a reality that's shaped by destiny, by gods and demons, by witches and spells, then the weird people are the Westerners, and now we could probably throw in the East Asians, that have this rationalist framework that seems to willfully reject the richness underlying human experience, right? The people who just are willfully blind to what is actually important about living, about our lifetimes, our lives, and instead focus on material conditions, or simultaneously the least and most important aspects of life are in the hands of these soulless rational calculators that somehow got to take over the world 200 years ago.
And that like I was just going to say that like that exact conflict is, I think, one of the more interesting threads that underlines Nosferatu. In the conflict,
I was just about to be like, Quinn, give us a lowdown Nosferatu, but he got it. Didn't need my help.
Yeah. In that conflict where Aaron Taylor Johnson's character does really embody that like cold rationality, and he is like he is the bourgeois. He owns like a factory or something. He's the typically successful one who's loaning out money to Nicholas Holt's character, and it is they're like referred to and kind of othered by their interest in the occult. These people who are able to see the threat of Nosferatu, clearly, they are set apart from this like rational character that can't see, even as his like spoilers again, even if it has his wife and daughters are killed, he's unable to face the unrational, alien moral threat that is the vampire, the Count Orlok.
What I've always wanted to see is a horror movie in which there's a character that's coded as the quintessential atheist skeptic type, right? That's thrown into conflict with some, whether it's a vampire or a demonic force, some supernatural evil. And rather than the typical trope of this character settling into some dangerous denialism that prevents them from taking steps to protect themselves or their loved ones.
They just take it.
Well, yeah, as soon as you see, because that's the thing to me, right? Like I'm a godless atheist, but if somebody shows me a ghost, right? If I come home and it's like, okay, my wife has 2 bite marks on her neck, seems to be some kind of catatonic state, right? Like we have a weird neighbor that's allergic to garlic and I never see during the day. I guess I need to revise some assumptions about the way the world works, and somebody give me the number to one of the, like, not just a priest, but one of the old timey ones, right? Like,
you need a Bayesian horror movie where a guy's just stood there updating his priors.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, shit. I've got some reading to do, because.
Going around and be like, so what flavor of vampire are you?
I'm thinking about it. This is kind of the plot of 1408.
The Stephen King.
Yes.
John Cusack.
Exactly. Where he's a skeptical author who comes into this haunted room and Samuel L. Jackson's like, no, please don't do this, and he's like, fuck off. I don't believe in this stuff. And then halfway through the movie, he's like, okay, no, I can't deny this anymore. But then he's like fighting against it because the evil of the room is spreading out and he's trying to save others from the fate that he's kind of locked into. And
that's an underrated movie. I think that 1408 is a pretty great. Especially if you, in some ways, the whole Stranger Things, Stephen King, Steven Spielberg revival, right? The 1408 feels like it belongs as a masterpiece within that aesthetic and like literary set. Much better than Stranger Things right now, which is like bloated and a little too all the way up its own ass. But in any case, in 1408, the explanation, there's no lore given as to why the room is like this. Yeah, exactly. Samuel L. Jackson just says it's an evil fucking room, period. Full stop. And that concept, the notion of evil, is also something that contemporary Westerners, if you're part of that good, secular, godless turn, have a problem with, because without some metaphysical grounding, without some combat between God and the devil, some force of proper cosmic order, harmony, goodness, then the notion of evil, and I love my Chinese wife, and it is deeply enriching to see how she thinks about certain things and what some of her intellectual instincts are. Yeah, it was a delight seeing you in England. Anyway, if we don't believe in evil, right? If you don't have some kind of metaphysical grounding to say that something can just be bad, can just be destructive and oppositional, then you're just recognizing that there's a force which has different interests than yours, and because your interests are, because you both want the same thing, you have a conflict over it. And if you can find a way to square your interests, or to have the test of strength be conducted in a way which doesn't require one of your extinctions, then you can, it just comes down to a rational difference of opinion, right? And you can see this a little with the transformation of orcs over time. From these, our grandparents had a concept of monsters, right? That there were certain types of, usually foreigner, that you couldn't negotiate with, right? They were just into destroying you for reasons that didn't really matter, because they were intractable. Even if a Nazi tells you that why he needs your territory and your genes need to be removed from reproduction, you're not going to be able to, Charlie Kirk your way into some kind of coexistence. This is not about arguing. This is not about trolling. It comes down to a fight, right? There's something about them which makes them intrinsically dangerous and requires your violent removal of them from your world, or else they'll do the same to you. But now, and the orcs of Mordor were exactly this. They just show up and they're just going to kill everything. There's no talking to them. There's no negotiating. There's not going to be a peace treaty. Contemporary orcs, whether it's in World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons, any of the nerd culture, nerd and fantasy culture, are now they're now just like,
they're big green guys
or something. Yeah, they're just a different type of human with their own.
They're like Catalans or whatever,
Exactly. They're not everybody's cup of tea, because maybe you don't like music that loud, or your sexual tastes go in a different direction. But they're people. It's fine, right? And losing that notion of metaphysical evil creates possibilities for peace and coexistence. Frankly, I don't think that you can have liberal, open societies structured along democratic lines that really do cultivate a notion of good and evil. At a certain point, that is going to destroy the underlying tolerance of difference that allows societies like that to flourish.
Right, because then surely someone's right, and then why are we having elections?
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like it's a sort of lower resolution, but more intuitive way to grasp social reality, to say that, somebody's right, somebody's wrong, somebody's good, somebody's evil. My team should win. So let's end this facade where there can be different contending schools, and just toe the party line. Impose it on the people who disagree one way or another.
It is interesting seeing when someone like a Western or whatever will debate someone from a country which has elections, and they're even relatively free and fair, but the same party wins every time. And the Westerners like, well, do you not think that the party should change sometime? And they're like, well, no, what's the point? If one guy is the other team better? Because when you want that team to change, but then you want to change back in the other one, it's well, what's going on?
Yeah, plus these guys know what they're doing. I don't trust these assholes that have just been on the opposition. The
government has job experience of being the government.
Exactly. And there's all of these, and these aren't problems that we're identifying for the first time, right? part of what's very distressing about this Trumpian turn in the United States is that there have been generations of institutional experimentation, tweaking, cultural adjustment that have gone into preserving competitive electoral democracy on the scale of the United States. Things like professionalizing the civil service, things like trying to depoliticize the judiciary, things like creating a cross-party elite comedy so that people who nominally belong to different political factions can nonetheless have certain places where their lives overlap and can find common ground outside of politics. All of those developments, which now seem hopelessly cucked and outdated, the American, greatest generation and founding fathers and all the heroic dead devised to deal with actual existential problems within their own system as solutions. And they worked. They got past those problems. Of course, they created new problems because history is a dialectic. But now, rather than finding new solutions to the new problems, we're shredding all of that learning and going back to the old problems. And the likelihood...
There's lots of countries in the world which don't really have politics as we understand them, but they just have like competing patronage networks. And that often leads to a dominant party state, because why would you join the patronage network which is losing? And how do you even go about that? Because all likelihood you'll join the winning one. I think a great hope for America is that Trump is really, really bad at building patronage networks, because he thinks whenever he gives anything to anyone else, he's being ripped off.
Yeah, I think that one of you mentioned competing patronage networks, and in the Middle East, you have one extreme variant of that where the patronage networks are then based in ascriptive communities, whether religious or ethnic, tribal, national, that you can't really change. You're just stuck in your own patronage network because of your descent and your identity, and you're gonna hope that it wins, right? Or hope that the patronage network that does win isn't the one that really, really hates your people in particular. On the complete other end of the spectrum, you have Asian communism, where you have one dominant secularized national identity, whether Vietnamese or Korean or Chinese. North Korea is its own thing, so I'll put that aside. But in the Vietnamese and Chinese cases, as long as even if you belong to an ethnic minority, as long as you play ball within the party structure, then you can personally advance and your particular community can be more or less looked after. But instead, you've got factions within the Communist Party, right? Like patronage networks that don't dress it up as clan loyalty or family loyalty or religious obligation, but instead it's like, this is our conspiracy to try to take over this whole thing. That's their conspiracy. We can work with those guys and those guys, but not with those guys, because like my PhD advisor in Marxism and that guy's, governor uncle had a fight back in 1953, and we don't talk to one another.
This sounds a lot like the Japanese Communist Party.
Or the Liberal Democratic Party, right? It's basically the way that you just have these cliques inside the governing class and the governing institution that fight it out over who gets to apportion the spoils, without much of a moral or ideological gloss to it, right? Like Xi Jinping may think that the other factions inside the Chinese Communist Party are in some ways red heretics, but that's not what's driving his opposition, right? It's a practical matter of consolidating power within his faction, within his group, and eliminating competing power centers that can get in the way. And for a lot of, there's some practical value, I think, to having a perspective where, you know, government does that sort of thing and it has the politics, the competition inside of it. And if you're a regular person, just don't think about it, right? Like, as long as the trains keep running on time and as long as the government is governing, right? Whether it's keeping the dangerous foreigners out or keeping the price of staples at the right level, preventing a plague from killing grandma or climate change from killing, you know, your grandchildren, then yeah, let them do whatever they're going to do, and who cares who's on top. As opposed to, you know, we have to fight a battle with the devil for the soul of America.
It is interesting. I think you, more than you might have known, you exactly hit on with the Mordor orcs. So, I don't know, you probably have read the Lord of the Rings books, but it's probably a long while ago. But I've been reading them out to my mum. And so I've been really going over every line, because obviously you read out loud very slowly. And there's a very interesting section in towards the end of the Return of the King where you actually hear Mordor orcs talking to each other. And they're talking about Sauron. And they don't like Sauron at all. But they're like, if those guys, the humans, get our guy, Sauron, afterwards they'll come after us. And they only like critically uphold Stalin. Sorry.
Well, slip there, buddy.
Slip. They only critically uphold Sauron, but then absolutely feel the need to do so because they do absolutely believe, I mean, obviously, probably for largely good reasons, that the world is absolutely divided between them and men. And there's no possibility for compromise. It's just us versus them until the end of the world. And of course, you know, the world falls on them in the end. Do you have any big thoughts left over, Quinn? Because if not, it's time for Race Guesser.
Oh, yeah.
Which
nothing
I
think
is
that's
a
super pressing.
Kuba Quinn head-to-head.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
If you have
I'm
thoughts,
thinking,
please do go.
I'm thinking if there's anything else that we haven't touched on. I feel like we did a nice kind of broad look at a lot of his movies. I think it's interesting in Nosferatu that it's the I think the least subjective of any of his movies so far. That the a lot of the kind of supernatural elements earlier in like his earlier films they've got a bit of plausible deniability to them.
Yeah.
Where in Nosferatu that's completely stripped away. And there's no way to look at what happens unless you're looking at it through like 4 or 5 layers of like, you know, metaphorical reading. It's hard to not
It was capitalism that killed his wife, not the vampire.
Yeah.
It's hard to kill the beast.
Something like that. Yeah. But go ahead. I think that's all the stuff I have to say.
Just on Nosferatu, it's an interesting case because that's one of the few ones where the metaphysical evil, even in the Northman, where you have a tangible antagonist, one that you can speak to, one that speaks to the camera, right? One that interacts with the world. He's still human, and the forces are working on a level above that. While in Nosferatu, the metaphysical evil is a vampire, right? It's one that has personality. There's a personhood attached to it. In theory, this is a problem that I've always had with sort of vampire fiction. A lot of the times when you get away from the good and evil elements of it, we need to fight undead and we need to fight demons, the power of Christ compels you, part of it, there's this obvious question of why wouldn't you just want to be the vampire? Right? Like you get to live forever. You know, there's a certain sexiness attached to it. Maybe less the Nosferatu version, more the Bram Stoker, Anne Rice variant. So it was interesting for me that he chose to remake Nosferatu. It's a beautiful movie. I love the Werner Herzog version. Like, to speak about another figure that has alien moral landscapes. But there's no, they maintain this sense that, well, it might be possible to recognize enough humanity in Orlok to sympathize. You can never communicate. You can never understand. You can never reach an agreement. And to a certain extent, right, like, there's something about the deal with the devil, that notion that you can create a binding contract, you can try to balance your interests, that is a sort of post wars of religion, post toleration type of thing. When in the Middle Ages, a deal with the devil was a deal with the devil, right? Like, you were switching sides. But after that, when the devil goes down to Georgia, right? Like, you can win. You can just get this golden fiddle, right? Like, he's an asshole like anybody else. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where Eggers goes next. And
he's making a werewolf movie next, right?
I was going to say, I feel like the werewolf movie is going to be very explicitly supernatural. Also, it's apparently going to be Middle English, which is based.
I recently read that there was a new archaeological discovery in England, somewhere in the Midlands, that suggests that fire was first artificially created, like 250,000 years ago. Some unimaginably
400,000 years of British civilization. China, eat your heart out.
Yeah, granted, the first 380,000 of those years were just one fire in Birmingham, but got to start somewhere. That's how you make tea.
British civilization, a good idea.
Yeah, on the kind of Anne Rice of it all, have you seen the new Interview with the Vampire show?
Is it any good? I have not.
It's quite good. I think it does a thing with sexy vampires that's actually interesting. It takes all of the kind of homoerotic subtext of the first novel and the movie from the 90s and just makes it actual text in the first episode, and then like takes it on to actually say something interesting about like relationships and it on like the why not be a vampire. It's a little bit kind of hell as other people. Like you are stuck with a small group of other people who are the only people that you can really relate to. Everyone else dies. Everyone else ages. You're stuck with your small cohort. And it's the reason to not be a vampire.
Some people grow up and change, right? But then some people don't.
Yeah, it's a fun, and like getting stuck at like the age you are when you're bit is a specific horror. Like if you're stuck as like a an early teen, but you're maybe 40, 50 years old mentally, that's its own kind of real existential horror.
Well, it also answers the question. The Anne Rice vampire answers the question of why aren't these superpowered immortal figures just taking over the entire world? Because if you had half of the powers and the longevity of a conventional Interview with the Vampire figure, then you could just win. You could just end up being Joseph Stalin forever. You could make every.
I got a florin in a Florentine bank in 1200, and now own the entire global economy.
kind of are. Like the framing of the interview is done in this like penthouse mansion in Dubai. That it is implied that like in the current moment, the vampires are kind of like the hidden lords of capital that are invisible through their like control over larger systems. They really are, running lots of shit, but because of the way that the modern world is set up, they don't have to be visible. They don't have to go outside. They don't have to live in a castle where the villagers can storm in with pitchforks. They can sit back in their penthouse with blinds that block the sun and sit back and collect their dividends.
And they have an ocean of market available enforcement institutions. Like they can hire Eric Prince to do anything they want. There is a service available.
100%.
Okay,
are we playing the racism game?
We can start with round one. This is not going to be exact, obviously, scoring between the two of you, but I want a guess from each. And I'll put one of your guesses in, and we'll choose who wins the round. Can you see them well enough?
Yeah.
So I'm maybe we should write. I'll write my initial thought in the private chat.
We're getting serious. Okay, go for it. We don't influence each other. I love this.
And because I am like, as soon as once we've got our initial guesses, then I'm happy to do my amateur phrenology. Okay, but so I don't want to.
Kuba guessed South Africa, maybe Hosa, while Quinn thinks Central Africa.
Maybe.
There's a challenge here because it's possible that these pictures are from people who belong to one of like the Negrito minorities, Andaman Islanders, or there's Highlanders in Malaysia and across and the Philippines that have this African physiognomy, but they're such isolated and distinct cases that that would be tough.
So for odds, I'll go with Kuba's guess on the map, and then we can obviously, if Quinn's more right, we'll say. So where you think about here? We're thinking this area, or you mean further north, like out of the Republic of South Africa?
Northern South Africa or like Zambia, Zimbabwe would work for me. So I'm fine with.
I'll do that there. Oh, they were out of minds.
Yep.
Nil point for both of you, but a spiritual half a point for Kuba for at least bringing up the idea.
God damn it. Over-indexed on skin color.
Is it going to load?
Sometimes it takes
it's very funny. On the Kurdish ones for this, especially the Kurdish group that they have near Iran, you can visibly see the PKK martyrdom posters in the background, because obviously that's the best source they have for people looking directly straight at the camera. And so you can see the party composite thing in the background. Now, these are some very interesting looking people.
Oh. Yeah, I see that, but I don't think so. Where?
And Kuba's already typed it, so you can either say or you can type it, Quinn.
Yeah, no, I'm. Oh, this is tough.
It's tough. Obviously, when we played last, every round someone's like, "Oh, burning them." So we have Bolivia for Kuba, and we have Central Amazon for Quinn. Since it is an even round, I will put Quinn's on the map. Because personally, after letting you two have a guess, I'm thinking way more north than you guys. These people don't look South American to me. Like, they do kind of a bit, but to me, this is like a mix of features between north and south, so I would be going further north than either of you have guessed, but we will see.
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
You're happy with this, right, Quinn? That's where you're
sure.
thinking. Yeah. Oh, it was the opposite. So I think instead of getting a spiritual half point, Kuba gets a definitive half point here, because as well as it's not a red area, it's not a main area, it is a secondary area in the southeast of Bolivia.
Yeah, they felt too tall to be Central American.
Yeah, I think I flipped on it because I was like, they're too pale to be from where you guys said, so I went north, but actually I should have gone south. I think it's also, they look weird because obviously this is a race which is almost extinct.
I don't know. They look like Evo Morales people.
Do you think so? A little bit, yeah. Actually, he just looked a bit like Evo.
When I took a trip to Latin America,
and that's the other problem. Sometimes it's Siberia.
Yes. Well, I'm hoping that like my Eurasian Slavophilia might help there. Wow, those are some table stakes.
I would say when we played last, Quinn got everyone right, apart from the white people guesses, where actually I beat him.
It's true.
So obviously that's what British racism is all about. I can distinguish between 100 kinds of white people, while everyone else is just. Well, I don't want to say the words, but you know what I'm saying.
Anglo-Saxon, 1/16th, Irish. Nope. Scottish.
I don't know. Oh, there we go. Ooh, interesting.
All right. I want to say Turkish, but I don't think that's right.
So I was thinking Cypriot.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Can I actually click all I have?
You can zoom in.
The thing is, I have I don't my mouse plugged in.
I'm gonna go Romanian.
This is a Quinn round, so we will be. No, sorry, this is a Kuba round.
Yeah.
So if you're going Cypriot, we'll put it there.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wonders Armenia, Azerbaijan. That's also possible, but
I think we should just start saying that that Greeks and Turks and Armenians are all the same ethnic group. I think they would like that.
I mean,
I think genetically the Greeks and Turks largely are. Apart from lots of the Greeks are actually Slavs, but like the Islander Greeks and the Western Turks, they're genetically identical.
In my family, we refer to the Mediterranean, the broader Mediterranean littoral into the Middle East as the off-white zone.
Right, we stick in Cyprus, or
yeah, I think we're gonna let's go with because I could spend forever working out which particular chunk of Anatolia to drop this in. So I said Cyprus first. Cyprus seems like a good instinct.
Ooh, is that? Okay. I think we have. I think yes, Cyprus is included there on that. Quinn is also in the pale red zone, but I think this is a point for Kuba.
Yeah.
Look at that. So this is the most broadest category of kind of the mixed Armenian, Turkish, Lebanese, etc. population.
Armenid subtype.
Armenid.
Oh, I love. Oh man, you can tell it's a proper phrenological racism with
I want to say Northern India,
Oh wow, you think so? I mean, obviously,
Maybe. I don't know.
Hmm.
No, not that far north. I gotta think.
I'm thinking Northern Australia.
You know what? I'll go Sri Lanka.
Ooh, and we're on a
Quinn
it's
turn.
Quinn's.
Yeah.
It's Quinn's guess. I think it's definitely not Sri Lanka. I
We'll
don't
see.
know if Kuba's right, but
Yeah, I don't feel great
definitely
about
not
it.
Sri Lanka. Yeah, so it was Southern Australia, not Northern, but still obviously Kuba's
Yeah.
way ahead on that one.
God.
Yeah, they had some noses. Though I would admit that the guy did look kind of Indian, but the woman didn't at all.
Mm.
Which is quite interesting in these. Like the composite men and women often look not particularly similar at all, which I'm wondering if it's a sampling problem or if it's just some kind of a sexual difference kind of thing. Ooh. I feel like I've met the man on the left 100 times.
Maybe Ivory Coast.
I guess that is the point of a composite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking West Africa too.
Yeah.
The put it in Ghana.
I'll go like a Cote d'Ivoire to differentiate myself.
The pin isn't showing up, but I've clicked on Ghana. I mean, I guess the thing is we're not doing it properly. So if it's if it's in Ghana and it's more in Ghana than it is in Ivory Coast, we get the Kuba gets the point regardless of what it says on the screen.
Sure.
Oh,
Oh.
Okay.
look, it's the Arab slave trade.
Yeah, exactly. Zanzibar instead of Ellis Island.
Yeah. Is that 0 point for both of you?
Yeah, I think
think
so.
because
Well,
you
I
both
think
kind
it's
of guessed-
0 or half. I think it's a tie game.
Yeah.
No matter what, we were both sort of equally wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say Nigeria, so I would have been slightly less wrong than you two, but not that much. Have I just primed the two of you to say Nigeria now, though?
I mean, that was my first thought.
For some reason, the woman makes me think more East Africa.
Sure. Like this could be Kenya.
Not Ethiopia, not Somalia,
Yeah.
but Kenya. Bantu, Niger Semitic, admixture.
So you both guessing Kenya?
Looks like we've converged. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Let's see if we got a decent tie. Or you know what? I'll go south. I'll go to Tanzania to if it's more south.
There's also a test if I remember where all the African countries are, but we're good so far. Wait, who's even two sorts? I always forget, even though it's not hard at all.
We'll figure it out.
Kuba's odds, Quinn's evens, right?
I'm if it's anywhere south of the dot, I'll give it to Quinn.
Okay. Well, I'll put it in. I'll just put in Kenya then.
I still think that the tie was both wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like the
Fengu Pondu.
Oh, it was my first guess would have been good.
No, there's academic references at the bottom. I didn't realize.
Are they going down to haplogroups?
Oh my god, this is like some real
Ooh,
Citations for the racism.
I like both of
Okay.
these both. I think this is the mayor and mayoress of New York.
Birmingham, definitely Birmingham.
Birmingham, yeah.
I don't think they look not quite white enough to be like Azeri, but like I could say Tajik or like Iraqi, Syrian, somewhere around there. I'm thinking Middle East.
Okay.
I'm thinking a little further east.
Yeah, so
I'm saying AFPAC borderlands.
So Kuba's over here while you're there, Quinn, or you want to go even more west than that?
Roughly there, I think will work.
Okay. I'll do Quinn's guess this time. I can't remember what order you were in or whatever, but
I'm not sure it matters.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah, that's
didn't think that
straight
at all.
Quinn.
All right. Okay.
Yemen.
First actual success.
I mean, I would technically would have got a point, but I was going to put it just in like Iran. I didn't get Yemen at all, though. Interesting. You can also see the Sudanese Arabs and that whole racial conflict I was talking about on a previous show we did together, Kuba.
Yeah, I mean, that
they're
looks
like
suspiciously
all
close to Darfur.
Yeah.
Is that like all just like Khartoum? Is that dark red spot?
No, Khartoum and whatever's like northeast of that, like the kind of civilized Arab cities or whatever, are all on the Nile. But then there's that pocket of Arabs further west. Ooh, look at them.
Okay.
I should try and sound less than like a really excited colonial official whenever a new picture comes up. I'm really enthusiastic about all the races in the world. Interesting guess from Kuba. What are you thinking, Quinn?
I'm thinking like one of the small little Indonesian islands.
This is one for me where the man and the woman look just like different races.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because just looking at the woman's picture, I'd be tempted to maybe pick somewhere in Africa, but
the
man's photo, definitely not.
So, Quinn, where are you thinking in Indonesia? Like here or?
Probably a little north, like off of Papua.
Oh, off of Papua. So, like here?
Yeah, I don't feel good about it, but that's my guess.
Regardless, I am going to go for Kuba's guest, which
Mindanao
is here, right?
Yeah, in the southern Philippines.
We'll continue to do Stefan geography testing.
Who's the real one getting evaluated?
Oh, well, I think that's a drawn round.
Yeah, that is a tie.
There is a problem here with this racial group doesn't seem to be a majority really anywhere, and so Quinn's actually guessed an area they are, while Kuba hasn't. But I think it's still a drawn round.
Yeah. It feels a little arbitrary that. Yeah, I kind of doubt their data. That it's everywhere around my.
You pick.
You don't think the random group of racists who put this website together.
We're gonna send in a complaint. This is not up to YouTube standards.
Oh my god.
Oh, look at those.
Okay. Yeah, I should throw in the towel now.
Real
yeah, I mean, I would I'm gonna go with the chat and say Belarus, the Baltic side of Belarus.
You know what? I'm gonna say like Latvia. I'm gonna guess kind
Okay,
of
but that's almost the same place. Like, I know this is here. Well, this is
almost, but like, you know, what is a little further north?
Well, I think that's like you can't do a lot Latvia versus the Baltic side of Belarus because whatever it's not going to be. If it's one, it's the other, but it's fine. It could just be a draw round.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Estonia.
I feel as though
I think you should go Estonia because, like, yeah, I don't want to give you
just to differentiate myself.
well, I feel as though we're pretty evenly matched, right? We're going to need to do a tiebreaker at some point, but
I really had me in the
I found a
first half.
formidable adversary.
I think Kuba has a clear advantage, but I would say that if Kuba loses the Slav round to Quinn, then he's like losing big points.
Yeah, but the geography here is like. And also, I feel pretty good that these are not Estonians, so you can just take
yeah, I think they're definitely not Estonian. Sorry, Quinn. But of course, you've guessed Latvia. We haven't let you change.
Okay.
Though if it's a draw at the end, what we have to do the tiebreaker where Kuba guesses Quinn's racial background. So far, I think refused to explain on stream.
I don't think I've refused. I've just lied.
Okay, let's see what the potato people are. Yeah, that's a point for Kuba, I think, there.
Yep.
Yeah. The
round soft faces, sometimes infantile features.
Jesus.
What is the name that they give this ethnicity?
Gorid.
East Alpinid. Oh my Gorid.
Named after the Polish word for mountain.
Oh, these are supposed to be Gurala? No, I'm not buying that.
I think we haven't got a single
Potato
one in the
people.
actual red, like the proper dark red zone, though. I think it's some poor racism for us today. Ooh.
It's the migration of the peoples.
Interesting. This is one where the man and woman look fucking identical.
Yeah.
The noses are fucking with me.
Yeah, they're very pointy, aren't they? For a lot more than you expect, and not very broad at all.
The noses say East Africa. They say Ethiopia, Somalia to me, but the roundness of the face says Bantu. And after the first round, I'm like, are we back on the Andaman Islands? Like, what is this?
I'll guess Eritrea. I'm doubling down on the nose guess.
Okay. I'm going to go with a dark horse and say Rwanda. Because I think that these may be pygmies.
Okay. Oh, it happened again. It's the
Come on, people. There's only like 1,000 Andaman Islanders.
But we got the Southerners and the Northerners today. Shocking. So yeah, I think we give that to Kuba, but I would say that if Quinn was playing the sort of game he played last time, Kuba would have been in the dust. It was not either of you, but Kuba in difficult circumstances with a double Andaman Islands has managed to pull it out.
This was Kuba's
showing his skill when he's in the dirt, when he's in the adversity. There's only points where he can get them on potato eaters, and he's managing to get through and win.
Yeah, I mean, it's the part of my biological genetic legacy where, I'm in a cage being dragged around from one slave market to another and being like, you're clearly a Gorid. We might have a cousin that's the same. Get me out of here, brother. I know you Andamanese are honorable people.
We had 2 perfect rounds. When did that happen?
Huh?
We got
No.
1,800 average here, and I think last time on TAR we got like 3,300. So
No, it's kind of a crazy game.
yeah, no, it was. I mean, there's some difficult rounds.
Mhm.
Double Andaman Islands is crazy, and of course, both times Kuba said it but didn't guess it.
Yeah,
When you said
it
wild
just
horse,
seems it just seems statistically unlikely. The population is so tiny. It feels
Yeah,
wrong.
but then
Clearly
if the
that's
thing is, this
the-
isn't like
If we were just
How did
doing,
we get-
if it was just population statistics, it would be a lot of
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It should just be 10 Chinese faces, right?
Well, 2 Indian faces.
2 Indian
Yeah,
faces, yeah.
Oh,
And
dear.
they both actually happen to be from Yunnan, right?
Yeah.
There's this minority.
It's bizarre. I wonder how it actually happened, or if it's a complete coincidence that that Turks call Greece Yunanistan.
I know that the Arab word for Jew is Yehudi, right? And so the terminal, the initial Y sound, for some reason, I thought that maybe the Turks had linked the two together as variations on, non-Muslim Abrahamic peoples, but I don't know. The Poland is called Lechistan in Turkish.
As someone who does this sort of thing professionally now, it's not the right format.
I think this is it. This is like a real like fly by night, like some kind
Oh
of.
no, yeah, this is made by real, genuine, autistic, salt of the earth racists.
Yeah, this is made by like some people who are like, not like, I think that they were too off-putting to be actually welcome to like the AFD, but
yeah, I'm saying these people who made this website are not involved in right-wing politics at all. They believe
they are racist, but they're not organized.
They are racist, but they're not involved in right-wing politics in any way.
They are the model train people to the AFD's we want to be conductors people.
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
Question.
I wanted to follow up on a brief thing that we talked about, I think, last time. Kuba, have you read Master and Margarita?
Of course.
Okay. I was recommending it to Stefan and the chat because I think it's
one of my favorite books.
And it's
masterpiece.
It's such a fun read.
Yes, and especially it ties into the witch and everything, right? Like the Walpurgisnacht plays a seminal. It's a huge element of the Master and Margarita, which also links together with the Semitic Christian tradition as well. Like there's a Slavic soulfulness to it while not repudiating or being narrowly nationalistic in its focus. It's a lovely work. Bulgakov was an interesting guy.
Yeah.
Morphine.
Stalin liked his plays enough that he didn't get fucking gulagged.
That says a lot, right? Like it's remarkable what it took to survive that period. Because anything could kill you, right? Like and one of the most dreadful aspects of the current sort of Trumpian moment, one of the elements that I recognize as being extraordinarily dangerous and leading in a very bad direction, was the fact that people in the enforcement side of the security state were getting quotas, right? Like the KGB under Stalin was, at that point it was the NKVD, but you had, based on planning documents and the Politburo and statistical analyses, your oblast, your region is going to have 40,000 class traders. So we need 40,000 bodies.
And of course,
And-
often it was the people who'd organized the last purges that were the first people purged in the next purge.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, in order to have an effective security apparatus, you need to create a bureaucratic structure to control violence. But then whoever is running that structure is immediately a threat to you.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
you need to.
that's I think that's why Khrushchev got rid of Beria. I mean,
Yeah.
I think personally
yeah,
there's
100%.
some good reasons to
I mean, I think
off
everyone, like, there
the-
were no bad reasons to get rid of Beria. Like, everyone
Sure.
had a long list of good reasons to get rid of Beria. I was going to
But
say,
Yezhov is the better example, right? Because Stalin recognizes that, hey, now there's this guy who's in charge of all of the security apparatus, and also it's really convenient for me to just blame them when it becomes unpopular and purge the old guys before they can do anything, before they can entrench themselves. And Beria probably had another few years max before
Yeah.
Stalin would have purged him too and found a new psycho. But yeah, that not a good time to be in Russia. Arguably, the early Putin period may have been the best time to be in Russia since the new economic policy. But
I mean,
now it's not a great time
he
either.
had to prove himself to be like useful to the people more than the like the oligarchs. Like, his consolidation of power had to come with some kind of delivery of some kind of, like, flip side of the social contract. Like, there was a reason for state capacity to show up in people's lives.
And the bar was so balefully low after the Yeltsin period, where you had tens of thousands of civil servants that were basically keeping the entire society going with elbow grease and whatever office supplies they could scrounge from, from around the village, that weren't getting paid for years, right? People were showing up to work, doing essential jobs, and just not getting a salary. And Putin reverses that. And you actually get the checks show up on time, and there is that level of normalization that occurs after the basically apocalyptic state collapse of the Yeltsin period. And
if you're in, I'm not sure if it's on right now, but if they ever bring it back, there's a pretty good play about Borisovsky called The Patriots that covers that whole period, and like the conditions that allowed Putin to rise.
I remember when I was teaching Russian politics at Berkeley, I had oligarch flashcards. I'm like, okay, who's this guy? Boris Berezovsky, very, very good. Who's this guy? Roman Abramovich, very, very good. The students liked that, although they hated the names.
throughout, since Quinn brought up the lighthouse, I've been thinking throughout. I returned instantly back to Odyssey, and I was like, man, Eggers would do so much better with the sea in Odyssey. While Nolan is going to do it so terribly, it might as not well as be there. Like, there might be a scene where they're on a boat and there's a storm. And that will be the extent of the power of the sea that will be shown. And that stormy thing will be shown. Everyone, it won't be people standing kind of like frozen in fear or cowering before the sea. They'll just be like acting like guys on an oil rig,
Yeah. The thing about the lighthouse is like there's a real like majesty and power and like terror, but also like eroticism in the sea that's like so compelling, and to take that out, it's just, it feels hollow and sad.
Very, very sad.
There's living in this demon haunted world, and this is one reason why whenever anybody shows depicts Scandinavian life in the Dark Ages, it's always Vikings and raiders, right? Because the amount of things that you had to fear if you were a regular person in those days, you didn't want to leave your hovel, right? Like, there are apart from all of the real tangible existential threats like Vikings, you had witches, spells, demons, goblins, elves, dwarves,
Well, and also
people who
it got so cold in winter that everyone in Norway had like monoxide poisoning for 2,000 years because they couldn't open their, like, they just had to be locked in there with the fire or die.
with the fire, yeah. And they, unless you had a brazen disregard for your own welfare, right? Like, unless you were genuinely fearless, you couldn't actually do anything in those days, because a healthy sense of self-preservation motivated fear just rules out, okay, never going to leave my village because everything out there wants to kill me, and you'd be right. The idea of taking to sea when you don't even have weather forecasts, right? Like, you're like, hope it doesn't rain, because if it does, we're dead.
Yeah, like, you know,
we're gonna get onto this like bucket. It's barely seaworthy.
Sometimes you'll talk to an old person today, and they won't have read or looked at the weather forecast, or they will have, but they're just like making conversation, and they're like, "Oh, there's clouds over there. It might rain today." Before modernity, that's all you had.
Yeah, and if you had a guy who, like Ethnoguesser, right, got lucky 3 days in a row, it's like, you are now our wise man, right? You are a wizard. Truly, your knowledge has no bounds. You understand the secrets of the earth, and you would believe it too, right?
Which is all fun and games until you fuck up and then you get stoned to death.
Yeah, exactly. You have to convince people. It's like, you can't stone me to death. I'll put a curse on you. And it's like, okay, we need to confer. So
it would be really bad luck to kill me.
Yeah. Is there a slave woman on board? Can't we just kill her instead? I think that, yeah, like, I'm thinking about the Christopher Nolan Eggers comparison. His Prometheus, he has a sense of what, superhuman forces with their mysterious own impulses and mythology and motivations might feel like, and he can convey that, but he's not great at grounding it in any sort of historical specificity, right?
That's all the kind of gloss on top of his stuff that I think he can't escape from his origins as a music video director. Like, it's got to be shiny, it's got to be sparkling, and that's why I think that the Pattinson Batman is a better movie. It's because it's not really worried about trying to be the shiniest thing ever. It's, I think, more than anything else, it's trying to be a good noir movie.
My one positive thing about Odyssey is that I think Robert Pattinson will try his best. I like Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that Nolan wants to, how did you put it, shiny?
Yeah. He can't escape putting gloss on everything.
I think that there is that obsessive aesthetics in his work, but the real music video director that I think achieved the highest level of this is Tarsem Singh, The Fall.
Oh yes, yeah, okay. Not where I thought you were going with there, but that is, I think, a better answer. But that's I think a different thing where it's not like, I don't think the aesthetics are fighting with the directorial vision. I think the aesthetics are the vision. and it's
Yeah, I agree.
pursued to such a extreme point that it becomes, I think, interesting to slavishly reconstruct your story around aesthetics.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's a fun movie.
oh yeah, it's an amazing. It's just absolutely so beautiful, and all of the pieces mesh together. It's generally speaking, as a cold white northerner, for me, subcontinental Indian aesthetics are usually too much, right? Like too much color, too much gold, too shiny, too bright. Things are clashing with one another. Let's pare it down. But Tarsum Singh, that guy, like when it's done right, it is like nothing else in the world. And even his less good movies, I think I remember the one with Jennifer Lopez. I think it's called The Cell. Vincent D'Onofrio. It's not nearly as compelling. More, it's dumber, right? Like The Fall was beautiful and mostly concerned with being beautiful, but it was also smart. While The Cell just, like wasn't gonna let intellectual stuff get in the way of the slicing a horse into sequential cell plates. But even that, absolutely stunning. Remarkable. And when you realize that this guy started out as a music video director, it makes perfect sense. It's an interesting path, right? Like Eggers, did he just emerge fully formed with like The Witch or something?
Well, it was I think he kind of emerged fully formed with his short of the Telltale Heart, which was like, a 20-minute lower budget version, but like the vision was already there. Like his slavish devotion to kind of historical detail and anachronism, and I think his aesthetic choices were like they're kind of just there and ready to go, and have just been kind of refined and tuned since then.
One director that I'm surprised we haven't brought up is Asher, right? Or Asher, the Heredity Midsommar guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because in some ways it feels as though he and Eggers are a Jewish and Gentile version of the same artistic directorial impulse.
Yeah. I'm not sure why, but it does feel that they have a similar vibe, even though obviously it's interesting because Eggers is like, I'll never do anything contemporary, while his are always set. Like
After is like
clear,
I think there was a scene in Eddington where it's just a character like scrolling on their phone.
Right.
And like he's obsessed with the image of screens and the depersonalization that comes with like modern technology, and it's an interesting kind of foil to Eggers.
Like especially the start of Midsummer is very like millennial failing relationship, like we've all seen it a million times sort of thing, and then some old people start flinging themselves off cliffs.
Yeah, similarly, in Hereditary, right? It's all of this consequences of trauma, intergenerational trauma, family therapy speak. I think the Gabriel Byrne plays the husband of the family is an straight up therapist, right? And so it's all grounded in this very contemporary psychological analysis about the sources of human problems, the sources of darkness, that's where the conflict should dwell. But what Astor does is then he's like, but also there's metaphysical evil. We're actually looking in the wrong place because you're trying to therapy fix something which requires an exorcist.
I mean, or like I think that in Eddington, the existential evil is the kind of, it's the conspiracy laden deep state. It's like it's the unholy union of tech oligarchy and like guys who were doing, off the book stuff for certain agencies, and are now like kind of free roaming.
I think Midsummer is very interesting at this point because it seems like kind of the point of the movie is to kind of lead the audience to think that this insane cult is right, actually. And obviously, I don't think the director thinks that, but he thinks it would be fun to make you think that, basically.
Well, one of when I was teaching Western civilization in Vietnam, I would start with the Romans and go all the way to existentialism. And my summation was an episode of Rick and Morty when it's, I think from season 1 or 2, the Summer is having a crisis because she realizes that she's an unwanted pregnancy and it's messing with her. And Morty tells her, no one exists on purpose. We're all going to die. Come watch TV.
Yeah.
And that, if I were to encapsulate it in 3 simple sentences, that is the culmination of Western thought in the 21st century. Right? That's as far as we can get. And if we're being honest, and we don't belong to the Rod Dreher obscurantists, get thee to a nunnery set, or any of these weird MAGA throwback grifters, then, right, like, life is challenging. We don't really know how to do it properly. Everyone makes mistakes, and it all ends exactly the same way, regardless of what you do. If that's the truth, then yeah, it's a question of how do you cope with things. And Aster doesn't have an answer. All he can do is point to these other people that do claim to have answers, like the weird Midsommar cult, like conspiracy theorists, like devil worshippers, and show that those answers don't lead anywhere good. There's an HBO series with Jude Law. I can't remember what it's called. It progresses. I think it may be called The Third Day. The Third Day, yeah. It's fascinating because he shows up in one of these weird British islands that gets cut off from the mainland by the tide, and there's some pagan festival, neo-pagan festival that's supposed to take place, but it's unclear if it's supposed to be a kitschy Burning Man thing or something is actually going to happen. And you can see how dipping in to that old-timey, pre-Christian, the world is moved by invisible forces, spirituality, is an intense trip for the protagonist, who is just a modern dude, right, with modern dude problems. And then it jumps forward in time, and you see what you don't ever see with Eggers, which is what the hangover, what the consequences are of drifting into that world, especially since outside of your little neo-pagan colony or the lighthouse island or your homestead in the New England woods, right? The indifferent, rationalist, capitalist civilization, the colossus of production, just continues to grind forward. It would be interesting to see some sort of speculative fiction which takes the neo-pagan revival seriously and assumes that you have some community that really embraces this new way of life. It changes their psychology. It changes their relationship with broader civilization. And then in the second or third act, representatives from the Chinese Communist Party show up because in the outside world, history hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And of course, the PRC wins, right? And then they're going to be everywhere, right? They show up and it's like, yeah. No. You guys are going to have to make some changes. Fortunately, we've been through this process before. So I'm going to get some lamas in from Tibet, and they will explain to you what the rules are about keeping your quaint folkloric spiritual tradition going while not getting in our way.
So I really need to go eat.
Yeah.
I can probably just leave you guys.
We're at like 2 hours.
For many hours.
I do think that
you guys.
idea for another show, to kind of tease the audience a little bit, is to take a look at what really exists these days in terms of like a political movement for like, you know, an alien moral view, the kind of pagan as it exists in the world right now is a real force. And that's like, you know, trolls out of Eastern Europe who are radicalizing kids on Discord. It's you know, what's left of AWD and like you know, 764 and all these you know, Satanist splinter groups.
Yes, I was about to
That
transition
sounds
into, I don't know what we're going to do next week, but if Kuba and Quinn have any good ideas, they can now say them to the audience.
Well, I like the idea of looking at online radicalization along those neo-pagan lines, combining that with AI psychosis, and
I can tell everyone about my new job.
Exactly. We look forward for the update. I think that Rod Dreher has an interesting take that isn't just limited to him. There's a segment of the Christian population that believes that, you know, actual demonic forces are speaking to us through AI, and that might be interesting for the audience.
Because that's why I was thinking when you were talking about these neo-pagan people, I was like, are they going to keep their phones? Because if they do, then it seems very clearly exactly where the religion is going to lead them. That there are going to be speaking spirits which talk to them, and they're just going to be their phones with the LLMs on them.
Yeah, but like the phones are regurgitating like someone else's like not that great speculative fiction horror novel back at them. Like they're.
But you know, obviously, the thoughts that these ancient priests had, where they thought the gods were speaking in their minds, were also not particularly like they were regurgitations too, right?
Sure.
It's just kind of we've literally externalized them now.
Well, and you can also imagine, what does it mean when you think you're talking to a demon, right? You think you're talking to you think you're having a connection with a supernatural entity that has some kind of insight, and you can actually go visit them because there's a data center, right? And you're standing there with your phone, and it's like this bank of machines. They're the one. That's the voice on the other side.
Well, you can run the model locally. You can
Even
have the
worse.
demon right in front of you. In
You
your
can capture it-
your
you can
laptop
capture it
is
in
the
a summoning
demon.
circle.
Exactly. You've trapped the demon in a circle of warding, right? Like have a Jesus iPhone cover, right? And it's like, haha, you won't be able to get out and hurt anybody else anymore.
Got a circle of
The
salt
L's
around my
above
Raspberry Pi.
3.1. Yeah.
Okay, so that seems great. I'll coordinate with these two and see if we're getting demons next weekend or if it might be later in the future. But I'm sure that'll happen. So goodbye, everyone.
All right.
Oh my God, we could summon one online.
Yeah, we could.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and
Bye.
subscribe. Give Jason money.
Like,
I guess.
please give Jason money. Subscribe. Blah blah blah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Start eating that trash can.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time.